Hi, I'm Angel Oakley, and I'm here with Lisa Canning. She is the founder of the Institute for Arts Entrepreneurship, and we're here to talk about the World Leaders Forum and education for entrepreneurs. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Angel. I'm great. How are you?
Doing really well tonight. So I just want to give viewers a little bit of insight about you and your history as an entrepreneur, and also the great things you've been doing in educating entrepreneurs. So can you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Lisa Canning, and I have been an entrepreneur since I was 16 years old. I started my very first venture from my dorm room at Northwestern University while I was studying classical music. I was being trained to play in an orchestra and realized that I really had a lot of ideas about what it meant to be a musician and to be an artist, and they weren't exactly fitting in with the classical theme of classical performance. And so at that time, there were only about 16,000 people across the entire globe studying entrepreneurship. And in the world of art, that wasn't at all something that people pursued. But I decided at that time to try and build a small business. And I proceeded to do that, selling small clarinet parts and things related to something I knew a lot about. I think my colleagues thought I had lost my mind, but I really felt as though playing in an orchestra was limiting and that I really wanted to see what I could do with all of my skills. And so that business turned into a fledgling small business that over the course of 20 years became about a $12 million business. I had 4 different retail stores, a distribution business, and I employed about 50 starving artist types. But what I discovered was that those people that came into my business with no skills were leaving highly skilled, highly motivated, well paid, and oftentimes were starting their own businesses because of the training that we had provided for them. And through the course of that experience, I realized that although retail and distribution was interesting, it was more interesting seeing human beings evolve into something more. And so 4 years ago, I sold those businesses and decided that I would pursue my real passion, which was to help creative people build businesses, unconventional businesses that they could be as successful with as I had been. And so that's what led me to launch the Institute for Arts Entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's very interesting. And have you found that entrepreneurs or the artists come in with one view and leave with a different view of how they perceive their careers?
Well, you see, the thing about artists, which is very well known but not well understood, is that most artists could have been doctors or lawyers or engineers when they were trying to choose what they wanted to be when they grew up. Some people say art chose them and it wasn't a choice. Others see it as they chose art. But the bottom line is that those individuals had a high propensity for right brain activity, or that creative, intuitive, felt sense. And by going to art school, it's something that gets developed to an extreme, right? But what typically doesn't happen is they aren't giving any training to balance it out and give them some of that left side that they actually need to synthesize all of those wonderful ideas. So oftentimes, some of the most intelligent people on the planet have these wild ideas, but no ability to execute them. And I was recently at a Grantmakers in the Arts conference, and their keynote kickoff presenter was Joey Ito, who runs an organization called Creative Commons, but who's also an entrepreneur and actually is a venture capital fund. And one of the things that he was saying was the best investment he ever made was with a group of artists that did something in the digital world with art. And that, arts really have tremendous capacity, but the problem is they need that balancing act, which is what my school is going to deliver. The way I explained what I do is that artists come with all the ingredients for the apple pie, but they don't know how to put it in the oven and bake it so it actually fuses together into something they can eat.
Great point. And how do you feel that the education that you're offering is different than the education you received, and how might you have been different in your path had you received the education more like what you're providing versus what you received?
Yeah, artists are not trained at all the way that I went through the School of Hard Knocks to be trained. I mean, artists are, it takes about 4 years to develop the maturity level, both artistically and as an individual, as a young developing artist, to get to the level where you can play in a professional situation. There's no doubt that it's a high-level pursuit to become as refined in communicating something through a medium that, typically isn't the spoken word, though it can be. And so, what isn't given to them is investments of taking what they have and then saying, now, how can we turn this logically into an income stream? How can we logically test these ideas in the marketplace to see if they can have validity? And how can we craft a plan and build on it? And, entrepreneurship is a practice more than it is magic. And just like it took practice to achieve that art form, it takes practice to achieve something that produces income. And so one of the things that really our education provides is, besides book knowledge and mentorship, it requires investments of time, access to capital, and being surrounded by like-minded individuals. Because when you're with people who are all passionately trying to climb a hill, it's funny how they all more likely get to the top and that no one's left behind. And, I wasn't given any of that in school. In fact, most people thought I was bizarre in what I was trying to accomplish. And, I definitely was into the wind the whole way, stubbornly so. And so, it's entrepreneurship, while a lot of people think, oh, you have to be super smart to do that, or it's really hard, it's much more a function of being willing to be of a beginner's mind again, saying, I had to be a beginner once to play the clarinet or to paint a beautiful canvas. And if you return to that beginner's mind in education, probably largely in any pursuit, you then finally are open to the capacity building you need to actually get where you want to go.
Doesn't that kind of bring us to that question of innate or learned? And you look at the situation in which you didn't get that fed to you in an educational setting, and it was sort of a matter of just needing to thrive, and you did well with it. So where do you think that balance comes into play?
Well, a lot of people think that artists are so talented, and I would argue they practice until people tell them they're talented. What is innately inside of us, whatever that passionate thing is that is inside of us, if we have the determination to do it, we eventually get good enough at it, whatever it is, that it looks effortless, right? And I bumbled my way through my first business and made a little bit of money and made a lot of mistakes. I've made tons of mistakes. And my father, who was a criminal attorney and had a very successful practice and became a foundry person, he bought a bankrupt foundry and turned it into a great success because he was tired of defending criminals and taking blood money. And in that process, what he said to me is, Lisa, make all the mistakes in the world you can, just make them all different. No, just don't repeat them. And in doing that, I really found a recipe for success, as basic as that sounds.